Rick Mestas, you have now been on the job as the Raton City Manager for 2 years. You're starting your third year this month, and it's been quite a challenge. You've had your ups and downs, of course, like everybody. But as you begin your third year, thanks for being with us. What do you have to share with us?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Marty. It's been great to talk with you, and I've been really looking forward to this conversation. It's a nice opportunity to reflect on the past couple of years in the city and also share a few updates with the community. Before I dive in, I just want to give you a quick shout out to KRTN. You do so much more than just report the news, and I know a lot of folks especially appreciate the Facebook live streams of the city commission meetings and the transcripts you post afterward. That kind of access helps people stay informed and involved, even if they can't make it in person.
What are your observations after 24 months? I mean, like I said, you've been in the job 2 years. You're about to start your third year. Anything surprised you?
Honestly, it feels like it's flown by. We're already gearing up for our third financial audit since I've come on board. In that time, I've been lucky enough to take part in 2 community cleanups, 2 runs for the wall, 2 balloon rallies, 2 recovery and remembrance days, and a lot of other meaningful community events. I think at this point it's safe to say that I'm not the new city manager anymore, though I still hear that from time to time. And, it still makes me smile. But before coming to Raton, I spent most of my career with the Department of Defense. The DoD is the largest federal agency out there, and for good reason. They call the Pentagon the Puzzle Palace, and for more than 25 years, I worked in a space where multi-million and billion-dollar contracts and global threats were they were a part of daily life. So naturally, when I stepped into this role, I thought, well, this has to be simpler. Turns out I was wrong. Running a city, especially one as close-knit and active as Raton, is anything but simple. There's so much more happening behind the scenes to keep things running smoothly. And it really does take a strong collaborative team. I have a doctorate in public administration, and my research focused on how power and influence flow between different levels of government, local, state, regional, federal. Some of these academic theories have definitely held up in practice, and some haven't. One thing that stood out to me, in the federal world, anything under $1 million is practically pocket change. But here in Raton, where we're serving about 6,000 residents on roughly a $7 million budget, every single dollar truly counts. That's why the commission, our city staff and I are so committed to being careful, thoughtful stewards of the resources we have. We know how important it is to stretch every dollar and make smart decisions that benefit the whole community. And I've got to give credit where credit is due. We're incredibly fortunate to have Michael Ann Antonucci and Jason Phillips on our team. They are 2 of the best in the state, and thanks to their skill and dedication, we continue to get the most value out of every tax dollar year after year.
Okay, you've been dealing with budgets, funding decisions, and things like that. How do you prioritize some of these funding decisions when resources are as limited as they are?
Well, let's start off with the abandoned properties. One of the very first things I did when I came to Raton was take down that abandoned tent on the south side of town. It might sound small, but it made a notable difference in the way the area looked and honestly on how it felt. And that kind of thing really affects our city's curb appeal. Since then, I've had people come up to me and say how relieved they are to see some of the deteriorating and unsafe buildings finally coming down. And I get it. These demolitions really do improve the visual and emotional landscape of our town. But here's the thing. Even the most basic teardown costs around $60,000, and that number can rise quickly depending on the structure. When we commit that kind of money to a demolition, it's money we're not putting into other priorities like repaving roads or upgrading the animal shelter or supporting other community programs. So every dollar has to go further than it probably should. There's a quote I like to use, and going back to the naturalist John Muir, and he said, when we try and tug on anything by itself, we find that it's hitched to everything else in the universe. And that really resonates with me, especially in a place like Raton. Every decision we make here, whether it's big or small, has a ripple effect. Sometimes it's one domino falling. Other times it feels like we've triggered a whole chain reaction. That's what makes budgeting such a challenge. We're working with limited resources, and that means every choice carries extra weight. Honestly, the range of issues that come across my desk on a given day is pretty remarkable. 1 minute I'm talking about library programming, the next it's a plumbing issue at the aquatic center, or with the fire department coordinating an emergency transport, or even addressing feral cat populations. I didn't arrive knowing the ins and outs of running a city, but I think my background in leadership, education, and training really helped me approach each situation with the clear head and, tackle it with the problem-solving mindset. The real difference maker, though, here is the team. The department heads here in Raton City Hall are some of the most capable people I've ever worked with, whether they're civilian or military. They're knowledgeable, they're experienced, and they're deeply committed to this community. And I've leaned on their expertise more times than I can count on, and they have never, ever let me down.
Raton owns Lake Maloya, Sugar Eat Canyon is all part of our recreational jewel in the crown, so to speak. Raton's natural resources, what's your perspective on that and the political engagement that you've had over the time concerning those things?
I grew up here in the West, and I understood that Raton's water supply is an asset, and I'm not sure I really grasped how many folks outside of the city, elsewhere in the state, and outside the state for that matter, have their eyes on our water. So I and others keep our ear to the ground on that issue. God bless the former city leaders who had the foresight to aggregate abundant water resources and protect our watershed for future generations. Another observation I'd make is that we benefit from being more visible downstate and in Washington, D.C. This past legislative session, we were very intentional about engaging legislators and state staff in Santa Fe. Commissioners and city employees, we were all there weekly. And we also invested in a bit of lobbying to keep Raton in front of the senators and representatives. When we can't personally be there on the scene, we have somebody there. I've also hosted 2 gatherings of elected and appointed officials from across the region on both sides of the Colorado-New Mexico border to consider issues and opportunities of mutual interest. I'm confident that we're stronger advocating for ourselves as a region than as individual entities. I think it makes sense that when you think about it, Raton and Trinidad have more in common with each other than we do with Santa Fe or Trinidad has with Denver. We've heard from our congressional delegation that they like that approach, and we hope that will translate into funding proposals down the line. My better half, Mary, and I have both been surprised at the cultural offerings and other things in their area, and that we've had to make some hard choices about what we're going to attend. And there's a lot of wonderful things here, and so it's convenient to go to a lot of these things. And finally, I'm like to say along those lines that how good it is to be back home again. I haven't lived in the area for decades, so I get to see the mountains and the mesas I grew up with every day, and it's a happy thing for me. As Mary often reminds me, people save up to go on vacation to visit Capulin and Fisher's Peak and Santa Fe Trail and the Palisades, and we can see them whenever we want. It's a privilege, and one we don't want to take for granted.
I can echo some of that. Last Sunday we took off and went up into Colorado, Highway 12, and for the colors. Of course, this time of the year, the colors are gorgeous. It's something that we truly treasure around this part of the country. Thanks, Rick. You've mentioned sharing some updates with us, some of the updates that you've got planned and of things that are coming and maybe coming.
Well, you see my whiteboard here. I have referred to it as my brain. It captures all the big rock projects and initiatives the staff and I are working on, along with the mayor's and commissioner's priorities. Anyone is welcome to stop by and look at it. And in fact, Walt Dietrich has taken the posting it on Facebook a couple times. And let's just talk about a few things that are up there. The first thing that I am absolutely proud of is bringing broadband to Raton. The north and the east side will be done by December. The west side will be done by the summer of 2026. This is absolutely huge for the city. The travel casino. I spoke with the governor of the Pickers just yesterday, and they'll be up at the end of the month, and I encourage folks to come and visit them. The film school, Al Raton Media Works, this is a huge initiative. I think a lot of people still don't understand that is actually going to spearhead not only training, but post-secondary education in the city. We've developed an education working group. We're getting ready to launch the El Portal reuse. We're looking at the expansion of recreational opportunities. Romero Park, the ball field, pump track, the bike trail connecting Sugar Eat and Fisher's Peak. We're looking at land acquisition. What else? Planning grant from the National Park Service. Continuing cleanup activities. I mentioned the Racino tent removal. Also demolition of other unsightly, dangerous properties and buildings. Cars around the city, the Marchiondo Golden Rule Building, Penny's, and up next, the Spanish bungalows. We got a brownfield grant. We're looking at the hospital. We have beautification grant. We're looking at improving safety. Placement of more mobile security cameras. Fire and police staffing, animal shelter and animal control. We're doing a lot on road repair. We're excited about the Maverick convenience stores, our Thriving Communities grant, baby boxes. I can go on and on and on and on of all the things that are happening, and I encourage people to come in and look at the whiteboard. Many, if not most of these efforts, they involve collaboration from agencies at all level of government, private companies, the Pickers Pueblo, and nonprofit service organizations. Their partnership is essential and really appreciated. Many of these actions also rely on grant funding, and we are currently managing over $20 million in grants from diverse sources. That's huge.
That is a huge amount. Since you brought up Romero Park, can we expand just a tiny bit? Because I know you've been hit pretty hard on some of the park stuff. You mentioned a pump track. What's that?
Pump track is, where we're doing, you can have bicycles and skateboards and ramps and, they can go around and they're really great recreation sites for young kids and safe place for them to gather and also provide, a safe environment. Skating's dangerous, but it gives them an opportunity to learn different tricks and do different things. And again, we got $500,000 for Romero Park.
Well, that's good. That's going to be good. You noted at the outset, Rick, that there's way more going on here in Raton than the casual observer might realize. What do you think is the biggest concern that's been brought to you?
My biggest concern is currently 21.6 of our residents live below the poverty line, compared to 17.6 statewide and 11.5% nationally. We're nearly double the national average. What's even more disturbing is 48.5% of our citizens who are under 18 live in poverty. That statistic explains why so many of our young people leave. Simply put, they want a better future, and I don't blame them. At the same time, we live between the second and the third largest landowners in the United States. We're kind of like this island of poverty between all these billionaires. Not only do we need to rethink how we interact with our neighbors, we need to rethink how we act as a region. We got a US DOT grant to build a regional transportation plan to look how we can better collaborate as a bi-state region. This includes Clayton and Union County, Trinidad, Las Animas County, and even Walsenburg and Huerfano County. And they have these all over the East Coast. For example, you have the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. But it's time, we try and come and bring everybody together and invest in our people, invest in our land, and invest in our future. And it doesn't really matter if it's public or private funds. We need to get people to invest.
Several of these big landowners, I know Ted Turner at one point in time worked on a kids initiative here in Raton. Is there any possibility of maybe working things to get some of that kind of involvement back again?
I would absolutely love to explore that. Vermejo, they do a lot of very important work up there when it comes to conservation, when it comes to saving the land. And they are doing great things, not only with private organizations, but with the federal government. And I would like to see the city get involved in that.
There's lots of signs, messages, city manager, you did wrong, kind of thing prominently around town and being spouted on social media. What do you have to say about that?
I'm actually glad you gave me the opportunity to address this, Marty. A lot of people don't really come here and ask the city what our opinion is. Simply put, this is a contractual disagreement between the city and a local business owner. As city manager, one of my primary responsibilities is to protect public assets, and I'm 100% confident that I operated in good faith based on what I believe to be both legal and ethical. I recognize that reasonable people can disagree on complex matters, and I respect that. I guess what's been more challenging is how a disagreement has evolved into something much more personal. The narrative has shifted in ways that suggest the city is somehow hostile to small businesses, despite the fact that considerable steps we've taken from providing free access to facilities rent-free to building a custom infrastructure like a greenhouse, no cost to the business. But, I don't see that as antagonism. I see that as collaboration. And what's also disappointing is the tone and nature of some of these responses. Public servants, including myself, Members of our commission, staff, and even my wife, Mary, have faced a range of personal attacks, both online and in person. Some accusations have gone beyond criticism and into the territory of things that are simply untrue and deeply damaging. And dare I say it, libel and slander. For those familiar with my background, including decades of federal service and holding the highest level of security clearances that our country offers, it's clear how baseless these claims are. But it's also disheartening when individuals who express a deep love for this community also engage in actions that divide it through misinformation, personal attacks, or disparagement of those working hard to serve. That's not how respectful businesses function or flourish. And I'm deeply concerned about the impact this climate has had on our staff. We have dedicated public servants who give their best every day, often without recognition, and they deserve better. Mary and I have both served this country proudly in uniform, including during wartime, and we understand and respect the right of free speech, including the right to criticize. That comes with the job, and I accept it. I get it. But what I struggle with to accept is inconsistency and hypocrisy. For example, critics have invited voices from outside the city to participate in commission meetings and then to turn around and question my legitimacy or my belonging here. My dad was born in Raton. My grandmother died giving birth to him and is buried here in Raton. My parents were married across the street at the Colfax County Courthouse before World War II. Yes, I grew up in Aguilar and Trinidad, but I also worked at La Mesa Park as a teenager. These contradictions send a painful message, especially when it touches on deeper issues of, identity and inclusion. But leadership isn't about seeking comfort or popularity. As one of my mentors once told me, if this were easy, they wouldn't need us. I didn't take this role to be liked, and I took it to serve. And I will try and continue to do that with integrity and transparency and commitment to making, difficult and necessary decisions that, are in the best interests of the city. Sometimes it just takes courage to be unpopular.
Well, what bothers me so much about some of that is the fact that people start making comments and they're uneducated as to what is really going on. They're commenting on something, and as you mentioned, so much misinformation that's out there, and it's tough, hard to deal with some of that stuff, and I agree, and it's disheartening, even as a journalist, to watch some of the faceless, nameless accusations and assumptions that go on social media simply because they're hiding behind a keyboard.
Yep.
It's disheartening. And as a journalist, I see comments that are made that, okay, didn't you go to KRTN's webpage and read the story or watch the video so that you would be informed about things like this? It's something that, that's one thing that's kind of disheartening. Do you have any parting thoughts on, where we have been, where we're going, the relationship between you and the commission and how things are going?
I'm thankful that the confidence that the mayor and the commissioner and the residents put in me every day. And I like it that, most people give me the benefit of the doubt that, when I was new to the job, that, I'm here to serve. And it means a lot to me when people come up to me, like at cleanup days or at restaurants or during intermissions at the Schuler and tell me they appreciate my leadership and our visibility around town. And I also invite and encourage anyone with the question, suggestion, or concern, come down to City Hall, get on my calendar, and visit with me about it. It rarely takes more than a day or two to set up a meeting. Rachel controls my calendar. I don't. So, go talk to Rachel. But, I think people will come away with a lot more understanding with what's going on in the city. I'm proud of being city manager, and I love this town just as much as anyone else. Like I said in my last interview, faith looks forward, and I'm excited about all the growth and improvements coming down in the year, my third year, I should say. But, I appreciate you having me, Marty.
Well, before we call it quits, let's take a quick look here at your big board,
Sure.
as they call it, and kind of go over some of the things that you've got on that board. Kind of point out, you mentioned things that are coming up, the audit, the budget, new stuff for the police department, new stuff for the fire department, paving and stuff like that in public works. I mean, that board is full.
It is full. And, there's a lot of, misinformation. For example, when we were doing the fog sealing recently, people were saying we were spray painting the streets. Actually, for those of us that are older, remember that, used to buy these big 5-gallon things of tar to seal things on your roof and stuff like that. So, when water gets into cracks,
right,
that's where potholes come from, and that the fog seal prevents that, and that's what that is.
And that was part of a project that started last year.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It was part of the chip seal that started last year. We ran out of time getting it done and getting it taken care of, so we had to do it this year.
And we are remote, where it's tough, and it's tough getting these products here. It's tough getting a lot of different everybody here in Raton knows it's hard to get a contractor. Imagine trying to get a contractor to do paving. And you see the difference. Going over Raton Pass, Colorado's pretty much done with their side of the pass, and we're still working on ours. They have Colorado contractors, we have New Mexico contractors that are coming from a long distance.
Right. Now, one of the other things you've got down there, Colfax County, Raton Public Schools, DOD, of course I-27 is part of DOT stuff. We're working with all of these different entities as part of what we're doing here in the city.
Absolutely. Colfax County, we're doing everything from the baby box. We're trying to support them in their events center. We're partners with them on the Department of Transportation Thriving Communities grant. They're working with us on broadband. And let me tell you, having broadband here in just a couple months, that is huge. And now we could start really attracting big businesses. Resound has been great to work with, and Baca Valley is doing their best to do the west side of the town. And once we are fully wired, that's going to be a huge thing. Public schools, we're looking at how can we partner with the public schools to keep students here after they graduate, to create opportunities, whether it's something like with El Raton Media Works, or with, working with maybe, some of the regional community colleges. Department of Defense, a lot of people are wondering, well, what the Department of Defense has to do around here. There's a lot of things. We're looking at, veterans who are getting out of the military. Most of veterans coming out of the military get out, if you retire, you're retiring at 38 or 45. You're at the peak of your game, and we want to attract some of these people here, get some of these service members to come here to start up as entrepreneurs. But we're also looking at, they're creating the Space Valley, the space corridor that goes from Las Cruces to Denver. Guess who's in the middle? We are. And maybe we could bring some space industry here and things like that. So we're looking at a lot of these different things. Also DOD, that's the Corps of Engineers. That's, fixing dams, fixing projects. So we're working on a lot of these things. When you see something in red, that's kind of like, those are really, really on the front burner. And We're trying to get these things done really quick. But, we're also working with Mora, Taos, Union, and Harding counties, the state of New Mexico, Trinidad and Las Animas County, the state of Colorado, and of course the tribes. So, there is a lot going on in this town.
Okay, another thing that a lot of people don't fully understand, city government, we like to get things done, but most of the time things work slowly because we have New Mexico state regs and statutes that we have to deal with and live within. Funding doesn't always come, we may ask for $1 million, we may get 500,000.
Right. And we will get money for things we never asked for.
Yeah.
So, it's, there's a lot that we need to do when working with the state, and it gets complicated because when we go meet with the state legislature, we're not just meeting with the three guys that represent Raton, we're meeting with folks from all over the state.
And as part of that, we're having to deal with everybody in the state to kind of meet our needs and get to where we need to be. Something doesn't happen overnight.
No, absolutely not. But, the good news and the bad news, if you think things go slow, go work for the federal government. They work, it's as slow as molasses. Things are actually working a lot faster here. But, whether it's we're trying to deal with a orphan property, or if we're trying to deal with getting the state to fix a road or something like that, yes, it takes time. Bureaucracy always takes time, but there's a reason for that, and that is to protect the taxpayers. You don't want to move fast, because if you're moving so fast, you don't know where any of the money is going, and oftentimes that money disappears.
Now, one of the other things that Raton is involved in is the Skill Sharps program through Northeastern New Mexico Education Foundation, which is the parent company of the Center for Community Innovation.
Right.
How has that worked for Raton? I know we've heard from Patricia that says, hey, we've had X number of students come through the program, but how do you see that, or how has it affected what you see?
I think that's kind of one slice of the pie. Patricia has been doing a wonderful job getting the word out to people, and getting people some training. And it's kind of like, it's one slice of the pie. We need to create the other slices of the pie. We built an education working group that is looking at how do we bring not only these slices of the pie together, but how do we get maybe somebody like Versal, like maybe Santa Fe or Central New Mexico, or somebody to bring a branch campus here. We've talked to New Mexico State, we've talked to Santa Fe Community College, we talked to Luna, we're going to talk to New Mexico Tech, and we really want to bring post-secondary opportunities to our folks. I know that seems a little bit out of the city's wheelhouse, but really workforce is not. Workforce, economic development, all these things are all part of our workhouse, or wheelhouse.
When you and I grew up around this part of the country, mining was huge in Raton.
Mining was that. One of the proudest things I am is, I'm a coal miner's son.
So it's all changed. We want to bring people back, but what jobs do we have to offer for them? And then when people nowadays look at what they're going to do or where they're going to move to, one of the other things is the quality of life stuff. Raton, when we were back in our heyday, was big with union. The union's going to take care of us. The mines are gone. So many other things are gone, racing and stuff. Now we've had to pivot. One of the big things we need to pivot to is recreation. We have wonderful recreational resources all around this part of the country, and that's what we've got to promote. How is Patricia promoting some of that stuff to bring in those people, and are we seeing that actually take effect at this point?
Well, one of the things that you have to remember is when you are creating a business, you not only need those entrepreneurs with the technical expertise to do whatever it is they're doing, but you need human resource people, you need payroll people, you need people who are able to work spreadsheets, you need people, all of these people to help these businesses function. And, again, this is kind of a slice of that. And it's a convenience slice that, you don't have to go to Trinidad, you don't have to go to Las Vegas, you don't have to go to Pueblo. It's something that you could do right here. Is it as robust as we wish it was? It's not there yet, but we're also a small town. And so as we increase our population, I think we're going to see people taking advantage of these.
Do you think small towns will stick around?
A lot of small towns are dying, and that's a fact of life. There are a lot of small towns that don't even have gas stations. I do think that history does repeat itself. What's happened in the past, for example, let's just say shopping. At one time, everybody used to go to a general store. Then they had mail order. Well, that's Amazon. It's just you got your Montgomery Ward catalog, and then things went to malls, and things went to downtowns, and things went to all of these different methods. So I think a lot of these things are going to repeat itself. And I do think you're going to find people sooner or later that these large cities are just not sustainable. And you're going to see a migration of people out of the big cities, just as you did, the turn of the previous century.
You're a prime example of that. I lived in Fairfax, Virginia for 3 years.
Right.
And
I was in Southern Maryland, and I had a 2-hour commute.
Yeah. Those are the kinds of things. I get around here, and even my wife from Amarillo, she looks at things as, I got a 5-minute commute. Yeah. You go to Amarillo and you're sitting 5 minutes at a stoplight.
Right.
So we've got a lot of that can be enticing to individuals.
Yeah. Things are in a pendulum, and I do believe history repeats itself. And, we talk a lot about the political turmoil today. I'm old enough to remember the 1960s and 1970s. There was a lot of political turmoil back then too. We see these things, and I'm optimistic that Raton can not only survive but thrive, and I want to be part of that story.
Now, it was brought up by more than one of the candidates Monday night at the forum, affordable housing.
Right.
What's Raton doing for affordable housing?
Well, right now we are looking at everything from, maybe financing an apartment building here. We're looking at working with contractors to bring housing. There's no silver bullet when it comes to affordable housing. If it were, the closer you are to a metropolitan area, the easier it is, because guess what? That's where everybody's at. But us out here, I think we have to be more creative. And yes, the mayor, the commission, all of us are looking at housing options. Everything from small homes to workforce housing to low-income housing to marketplace housing. We're looking at all of it.
There was a project started over on Grant Street, or in the area of Grant Street. There was 1 or 2 homes put in over there. What's the project? What's the status on that particular project?
I think that status is on hold, and a lot of it has to do with financing, and I think we can get some people here, but Raton has slowly been losing population. And the more population you lose, you're not going to get contractors to look at coming in and building a huge development.
Right.
What's going to bring contractors here is if there's going to be a huge employer here. Let's just say that the Picaros Pueblo decide to build a major casino with a major hotel. They'll create other major hotels. Okay, then now we're starting to get the ball rolling in the other direction. Mm-hmm. But even if we were to get some small industries that are dealing in space. You know, you're going to get some people out here, and you know, again, it's kind of like, you know, life-saving measures. One of the first things you got to do is stop the bleeding, and that's what we got to do. Is we got to stop people leaving Raton. We got to keep people here and start attracting people here.
Promote our recreation.
Promote our
gyms.
recreation, our quality of our life, our great water, all of it.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Marty.
Pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.